Yo, what is good, YouTube? Krishan checking back in with another video. If you would like to support me in any way, you can do so by liking this video and subbing to the channel. So in today's video, we'll be actually talking about Steve Kuclo. Now, Steve is a guy a lot of people aren't talking about going into this 2022 Arnold Classic, probably because Steve hasn't put out too many physique updates. But based off the last Arnold Classic, Steve is the highest placer from the last Arnold Classic in this show. The only guys that placed ahead of him were Nick Walker and Ian Valliere. Now, going into this show, the favorites have to be Brandon Curry and William Bonac. And Cedric McMillan, of course, too, because he's won an Arnold Classic. But after those guys, Steve Kuclo has to be the next guy that you look at. And one thing I think people are forgetting, this is a picture from the Texas Pro, and I'm pretty sure you guys know who Steve Kuclo is. Ian Valliere is a huge human being. He is borderline being a mass monster. And some people may consider Ian Valliere to be a mass monster already. Look how he looks next to Steve Kuclo. Look how big Kuclo is. Look at how wide his shoulders is. That is Ian Valliere standing next to Steve Kuclo, guys. And he's pretty much dwarfing him, in all honesty. Maybe not dwarfing him, but Steve definitely stands out. And I believe that's something people are forgetting about going into this Arnold Classic. At the end of the day, this is a bodybuilding show. The guys that are the biggest and the most conditioned will likely win a show. And this was the version of Steve Kuclo that he brought to the 2021 Texas Pro, where he placed second. Man, incredible physique. But at this show, he lost to Ian Valliere, and that was probably the best Ian Valliere we've seen to date. A lot of people, including Ian himself, have said that Texas was one of his best showings of his career, if not the best. But take a look at the delts of Steve Kuclo, guys. Look at this most muscular and look at these delts. There are a lot of guys in this lineup that look a lot more aesthetically pleasing and kind of even classic. But once again, guys, this is a bodybuilding show. I believe that the guys that look more aesthetic aren't going to be able to get past Steve Kuclo, because this is a bodybuilding show. This isn't a classic physique show or an aesthetic show. And Steve Kuclo actually has an amazing flow. He actually is somewhat of a more aesthetic bodybuilder. I mean, even with him being huge, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a mass monster. He's about 6 feet, maybe 6'1". I believe Steve weighed 292 when he was competing in Texas. But this is from the Arnold Classic, and admittedly, Steve seemed to not have as much detail as he had at the Texas Pro. And as you guys know from prejudging, it was a call-out between Nick Walker and Steve Kuclo. But somehow Ian Valliere was able to make up ground, and Ian actually placed second at the Arnold Classic, despite it being a two-man call-out at the beginning. And Steve took third, which a lot of people were upset about. Now, just to touch on my personal opinion on that, I do believe Ian deserved to edge out Kuclo. I just believe Kuclo's main knock, honestly, is his midsection looks kind of washed out sometimes. So when he's next to a guy that has great abs or, a great serratus, the midsection is the center of the physique, as we've seen with Phil Heath. So even if you have everything else perfect, if your midsection or your abs isn't intact and the next guy has shredded abs, it's going to be very hard for you to get the nod against him. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about Steve Kuclo? And honestly, guys, we're all pretty much expecting Bonac to slip. He may not slip low to 5th or 6th, but pretty much everyone has kind of have a common consensus that William Bonac is probably not going to be in that second place spot. So the next guy that you have to look at, guys, is Steve Kuclo. And these pictures are actually from his last preps going into the Arnold Classic. And guys, look at the delts. Who has bigger delts than Steve Kuclo? Who has a bigger chest than Steve Kuclo? The only guy that can probably match up with Steve Kuclo size-wise is Akeem Williams, but he's not known for bringing the best conditioning. But honestly, guys, it's a bodybuilding show, as I've said numerous times in this video. At the end of the day, the biggest, most conditioned guy will win the show. Now, Steve can possibly win the Arnold, but I have to give respect to Brandon Curry because he is a Mr. Olympia. There are only 16 men in the history of our sport that are able to call themselves Mr. Olympia, and Brandon is number 15. So that definitely has to be respected. But it's honestly apples versus oranges, guys. Do they want a bigger, shredded physique winning the Arnold Classic, or, maybe a little shorter, more aesthetic, shapely physique, Do you want big and conditioned, or round and bubbly? But definitely let me know in the comment section below, guys. I was going to wait until I put out my predictions and just surprise you guys with a high pick for Kuclo, but Steve Kuclo is probably the #1 guy I have knocking at Brandon Curry's door for their Arnold Classic. Now, I hope you guys did indeed enjoy this video, man. Like, comment, and sub. Once again, if you like to support me or anything I'm associated with, it will be in the description below. I'm out.